Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. We got some Xbox news, we got some Bethesda news, all of it pretty exciting. Specifically, the Bethesda news is a bit fascinating. Our number one story today talking about Starfield bug preparation by the community. It's crazy. Never really seen something quite like this before, but we're going to talk about it. Anyway, now we have QuakeCon impending, Gamescom next week. We're going to have the Disney and Marvel game showcase in early September. Who knows what else? Some games are starting to finally come out with Destroy All Humans 2 remake as well as Saints Row. So finally, things are picking up a little bit here because I'll be completely transparent as someone who runs a channel that's more retro themed, Retro Rebound, where we talk about older games, versus the modern channel, MrMattyPlays. My God, has it been a tough time running this channel the last couple of months with literally nothing to talk about. Every day, it's a struggle, baby. But we live for that struggle, so welcome one, welcome all to an Xbox Bethesda news update. If you're new here, you're into that type of stuff, consider subscribing. We're also doing more Let's Play style, review style content, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm so happy you all have been enjoying it. When we stepped out of our pocket from Fallout into Cyberpunk, I was really relieved and happy to see how well that video did. So thank you all so much for that. We're going to continue to experiment here and break the boundaries, if you will. And now let's talk about our number one story here, because like I said, this is fascinating. It's also kind of putting an exclamation point on how slow the news is, because underneath the layer of this story is something that's not necessarily news, but I wanted to talk about it anyway because it shows where the Bethesda community is and just how traumatized they very well may be. So as you'll see here, there are headlines like this talking about Starfield having release date bugs being addressed. And when I first saw this, I immediately raised an eyebrow like, okay, what do you mean? The game's not out yet. No one's played it yet. There's been no previews, nothing like that. How are they addressing bugs already? Well, what's happening is if you go over to the modding wiki, you'll see that there is a Starfield community patch starting to gather a force for development. Now, if you take a deeper look, it says that the scope of this patch includes fixes that are intended to correct bugs or errors in the base game, such as misplaced objects, script errors, inconsistencies in item properties, faulty missions or quests, game-breaking exploits, missing attributes such as tags, header flags, etc., and spelling errors. The patch is not intended to include any of the following, like new content, balance changes, or any tweaks that are not in keeping with the original vision for the game. They are currently in the organization process, as in it's going to be owned by the community rather than an individual or team, and this means that there will be tons of contributors. And they're saying that you don't even have to be a modder to contribute, but that you can report bugs to the community patch page and that they will see them and look into them. Now, what's crazy about this is something that has happened for multiple Bethesda Game Studios games. You can look at Skyrim, they have an unofficial patch with 11 million plus downloads. You look at Fallout 4, its unofficial patch from the community has 5+ million downloads. So this is something that we have seen from the community in the past. Whenever they are willing, they will do so. And there would have definitely been one for Fallout 76 if this wasn't an online-only game where modding was pretty much cut off at the legs. But that's also kind of why it's surprising to see it making a lot of headlines. Again, I think putting an exclamation point on how slow things are. Starfield, I think, being the next truly big takeover style game for the internet, where any news you can create about this game, you should probably do so because it'll generate some traffic. But I do think it's worth talking about because we have communities preparing for bugs already. That's what's happening. They're saying, yep, it's Bethesda, it's going to be buggy. And if I were Bethesda, I would be on watch looking at this. I'd be like, we got to make sure they don't need to do this. We need to set a new precedent. That would at least be my thought process if I were working there, is like, okay, this is a bit humiliating, quite frankly. I know Bethesda games are particularly ambitious and large scale for their team size, especially the older ones like Skyrim, where they're around like 100 developers. That's insane to think about. They have scaled up over time, so they shouldn't need their community to create the safety net well in advance. But of course, modding will always continue to improve Bethesda Game Studios games. It'll continue to add content to it. Starfield will be no stranger to that. And I'm sure the conversation will be very fascinating surrounding the launch of this game, even if there's like one little bug. Because remember when Halo Infinite was coming out and they were comparing the fruit of that to Call of Duty? Yeah, so I'm not expecting too much from the communities out there, but anyway, excited for Starfield. Thought this was an interesting story. Next is a remaster leak from Bethesda. This one I was very curious about. I saw QuakeCon, I saw Remaster League. I went, oh, and it's still exciting. It's not the one we're looking for, though. We all know we're looking for the Fallout stuff, and there maybe is a possibility of that. But anyway, we're going to be taking a look at an article from PC Games N, where they write, Quake 2 Remaster hinted at by Steam updates ahead of QuakeCon. On August 11th, the Steam listing for Quake 2 was changed in a variety of ways. The descriptions for launching the game's various mission packs were altered, as well as some of the configuration settings to launch the game from within Valve's marketplace. Most tellingly, however, the description for Quake 2 was significantly rewritten, suggesting Quake 2 could possibly be positioned for a relaunch. Changes to Quake 2's Steam page don't necessarily signal a remaster. Bethesda and id Software recently reshuffled some of the listings for both Doom and Quake, bundling Doom 2 into a single package with master levels, and Final Doom and the original Doom 3 with the reworked BFG edition. The companies explained that Quake 2 would also be merged with its additional mission packs to form one executable, which could explain the Steam listing changing. Doom 2 also had its description updated. For those who don't remember, last year at QuakeCon, Quake 1 was remastered. It was upscaled to 4K. They added a bunch of brand new bells and whistles to the title, and they released it day one on Game Pass, which was pretty exciting for a lot of fans of the game. So it wouldn't be too surprising if just one full year later at QuakeCon, again, there is another remaster for a Quake game here, as they're steadily revitalizing this franchise. And this is also alongside the rumors that the next game from id Software, the developers of Doom and Doom Eternal, would be working on a Quake game. So to me, it does make sense to revitalize these games, get them back in the market, get people talking about the series again, thinking about the series again, refamiliarizing themselves with it, so then when id's Quake does roll around, if it does roll around, then people will be relatively familiar with the product or have at least heard of it, because we're talking about a new generation potentially entering Quake. What is this brand new first-person shooter, and what's id's take on it? I'm very excited to see what they're working on next. I've speculated a bit that they've been the eerily quiet studio underneath the Bethesda umbrella, and the one that's not talked about a lot when it comes to the Xbox first-party studio portfolio, and that this is a team I could see possibly revealing what they're working on next at QuakeCon. Does this immediately, for those of you wondering, scratch a Fallout remaster off the list? No, because just like we saw last year when the Quake 1 remaster was revealed at QuakeCon, we still got Skyrim Anniversary Edition, so it doesn't mean there's only one announcement. And honestly, this could make the Fallout remasters or any other additional reveals more surprising. So with that, QuakeCon will be interesting to start things off, as we're seeing it looks like Bethesda and Xbox are continuing to take that approach, which is reserving some Bethesda-based announcements for QuakeCon and letting Xbox and the rest of the first-party studios do their thing, in this case, at Gamescom. Speaking of which, we learned at the Xbox Bethesda showcase this year in June that Hideo Kojima was teaming up with Xbox to work on a brand new exclusive. It was an announcement of an announcement, and for a lot of people, the prospect of this partnership is really cool, but they wanted to lay their eyes on the game. Now, make no mistake that it is a pretty groundbreaking deal that Kojima is coming over to Xbox to make an exclusive game. This will be a major cratering impact to the Japanese community for Xbox, which Xbox has really struggled since the 360 generation to get a hold of. And with someone as influential and as big of a deal as Hideo Kojima, this will likely incentivize other developers to look into Xbox if they're striking deals with Hideo. Well, of course, now we're wondering, what is this game? And there have been rumors of a horror-style game called Overdose around on the internet, but now it looks like whatever this game is may be shaping up for a reveal rather soon, if we're to believe Hideo Kojima over on his Twitter account, where he writes, "Tentatively finished editing for now," which shows that he is editing a trailer for what I would imagine is a brand new game reveal. The timing for this could not be more perfect when you take a look at all of the threads connecting here. It's Gamescom coming up. Who's hosting Gamescom? Jeff Keighley. Who's Jeff Keighley obsessed with? Hideo Kojima. Who does Jeff always check in on first when putting his shows together? As he said before, Hideo Kojima. Who's going to be at the Gamescom showcase? Xbox, who's going to have a number of exclusives, not only re-showing themselves like High on Life, but also Jeff Keighley is saying there will be brand new game reveals and announcements at this showcase. It would make so much sense if Hideo Kojima was here. Now, of course, Xbox does love the Game Awards. It's possible that they're still working on a trailer for then, so I wouldn't necessarily hold your breath and say, oh, it's definitely happening here, but Xbox loves to make use of the Jeff Keighley platform. It wouldn't surprise me if they spread the wealth a little bit and said, let's announce the partnership in June, reveal the game on the next Jeff Keighley show, whatever that may be. And now we're maybe seeing that come to fruition. There's also been speculation for a while that Death Stranding could come to Xbox, and it's possible that it's something as simple as that. But anyway, expect Xbox to have a heavy presence at this showcase between games we already know about like Benedict Fox and High on Life, but also games like potentially what Hideo Kojima is working on, and even speculation has started to ramp up on various websites, Reddit, social media about 007 GoldenEye. This is the one that a lot of people have been waiting for. This is a weird bit of memory here, but when I made my first video for this year after returning from my vacation, so back in January, the story I covered was 007 GoldenEye coming to Xbox. So this has been a whole saga, a whole anime arc, and finally it could come to a conclusion if the timing does work out in our favor, because there is a very interesting anniversary happening for GoldenEye 007 the same day as the Gamescom opening night live showcase. Yes, August 25th. It's again written in the stars. Makes so much sense. But the last rumor we had heard about GoldenEye is that right now it's sort of stuck in limbo due to the war in Ukraine. This is very unfortunate, not something you can really expedite, but the timing just makes so much sense. So we'll see how things end up between QuakeCon and opening night live, if there's any big reveals outside of what we've talked about in this video. Certainly if we hear anything before then, I'll be on top of it making a video here, but I just wanted to share what I thought was an interesting news batch for today's video. So let me know what you're thinking about all of this in the comments down below. Are you excited for what Hideo Kojima is working on, a potential Quake 2 remaster? What do you think of Starfield's community already rounding up to make a patch for the game? And of course, do you think GoldenEye 007 will make its way to Xbox on August 25th? I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts, and with that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.